My name is Bruce LaBruce. I'm a filmmaker from Toronto, Canada. I have 2 films in the Berlinale this year. Ulrike's Brain, which is in Forum Expanded, and The Misandrists in the Panorama section.
Frau Pfeiffer, stimmt das Gerücht, dass Sie im Besitz des Gehirns von Ulrike Meinhof sind, der berühmten RAF-Terroristin?
Wir können keinen Kommentar dazu abgeben.
Sie können sowieso keinen Kommentar abgeben. Miss Pfeiffer, what will you do with Ulrike Meinhof's brain tonight?
Enterprises.
Aus Asche, aus dem Feuer bist du geboren worden. Unser Volk, das Reich zu neuem Glanze zurückzuführen und zu befreien von den amerikanischen und jüdischen Schweinen.
Can you all repeat that?
Parthenogenesis.
And remember, girls, the closest way to a man's heart is through his chest.
Make love fearlessly and femininely in the name of freedom for female people. Freedom for female people!
Welcome, Bruce LaBruce. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
At this year's Berlinale International Film Festival, you will show 2 films of yours. The Misandrists is one of them, and the other is Ulrike's Brain.
Yes.
It must have been a quite productive year last year for you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of films in development that have bigger budgets, but rather than wait forever to make a film, financing takes forever, I decided to make this lower budgeted film. So I wrote it last January, of The Misandrists, and shot it in the spring and posted it in the fall, and now here we are at the Berlinale. So the other one, Ulrike's Brain, has been sort of been on the back burner for a long time because it's based on a performance I did at Kampnagel in Hamburg about 4 or 5 years ago. And then I shot, it was like a performance installation at a exhibition called Die Untoten. And
What was it called? Sorry.
Die Untoten.
Die Untoten.
Die Untoten, yeah. And it was all about the ideas of the post-human and like the new definitions of life and death. So I came up with this idea of Ulrike's brain, Ulrike Meinhof's brain being, it disappeared famously with the other brains of the RAF, and so a doctor in my story has the brain, and she's trying to transplant the brain into a female body to start a new feminist revolution. So that's kind of like the genesis of The Misandrists too, because I did this performance installation over a 3-day conference, and then shot additional material in Hamburg subsequently to make it into a film. But the idea for making a film about a feminist revolution really came from this core idea of Ulrike's Brain.
I see.
And actually, Ulrike's Brain appears shortly as a film within the film in The Misandrists. So they're actually really connected.
I mean, you go into the cinema within your film, so I mean the Liberation Army, the female Liberation Army goes into the screening room, but this is like you have like in the Ulrike's Brain, it's the same situation. So you're going into the cinema. So this is quite important to you to spread the message, right? The cinema as a place of like to spread
of insurrection.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I think cinema, especially today, should be, insurrectionary more than ever. So, and this idea of actually bringing it into the actual movie theater as a kind of meta narrative is, it's about theory versus praxis. It's like bringing the kind of theoretical revolution that I talk about in the films right into the cinema, literally,
So you spoke about like budgets. Both productions were low budget productions, or?
Yeah, they're both
You got a
pretty
lot
low
of
budget.
funding. I mean, from different
Well, I mean,
organizations.
Ulrike's Brain was mostly financed by the Canada Council for the Arts, which is an arts funding organization. And The Misandrists, we got some medium board money, we got some Kickstarter money, and then a few other sources. But it's amazing because what you can do now with cheaply, because we shot in 4K, for example, so it just looks absolutely gorgeous, and we shot for only 11 or 12 days, I think 11 days, but like 14, 16-hour days, every day, but the also because we shot in 4K, you can really punch in like 50% without losing any resolution, so it gives you a lot more latitude in editing. So it really, I think, looks like a much bigger budgeted film than it is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I ask you about the budget because, I thought the narration is mainly told in the Ulrike's brain by the voiceover. There's barely dialogue. So how did you come with this idea? I did wonder if this was a result of funding, or it was a more an aesthetic and artistic.
In Ulrike's brain.
Yes.
Throughout the film, Ulrike's brain is communicating telepathically with Dr. Pfeiffer, and a lot of that text comes directly from Ulrike Meinhof. It's part of the historical record, so we had access to that, and I don't know. It was a very improvisational project. Susanna Zaxa, who's in both films, she hates improvisation, and she hates me when I make her improvise. But she's so good at it, So she and Jonathan Johnson, who's actually my jeweler, he makes all my jewelry. He plays JonathanJohnson.com. Throw in a little Melania, Ivanka kind of product placement there. He plays Detlef Schlesinger, her arch rival, who has Michel Koonin's ashes, the neo-Nazi leader, gay neo-Nazi leader from the 80s who died of AIDS in 1989. So they improvised a lot of the dialogue, and then we used the actual texts from both, the neo-Nazis and from the extreme left terrorists.
It's quite a clash of cultures, both will team left and right meet on stage, and this was quite funny. You have a great sense of humor. By this improvisation anyways, of both of them, but do you put or is humor a way to put a difficult story in a different kind of costume, that it's more easy to make a film about it?
I guess so, but we've really gotten to the point of absurdity now in the world and politics, obviously with Trump, so I think to put it as a B movie automatically gives it some humor, but it really is a B movie. It's not. I don't even have to push it into the B movie genre. Life is a B movie right now, with Trump. So
said enough. But...
Yeah, sadly. So although it's good for humor, and there's a famous B movie called They Save Hitler's Brain, which I was referencing, and I think also in these times you just have to keep your sense of humor. Sometimes that's the only thing that you have left, really, when you're fighting these absurd, forces and reactionary forces. It's just, you have to laugh.
I would like to talk about the Misandrists now. You made several movies in Berlin, or you shot several movies in or around Berlin. So what's the impact of this city on your artistic work?
In terms of the Misandrists?
In terms of the Misandrists. It's located the convent where the Female Liberation Army is settled. So why did you put it in the outskirts of Berlin? Yeah,
I've shot 5 or 6 movies now in Berlin, and my 2 favorite cities in the world to shoot are Los Angeles and Berlin, because they're my 2 favorite cities, and they couldn't be more different. LA is the new world. It's bright sunshine. It's permanent noon. Permanent sunshine, and Berlin's the opposite. It's permanent midnight. It's very gothic and dark. So it's I really like the contrast of the two. But in Berlin, this time, I shot on this kind of a remote location, a 2-hour drive from Berlin. That's where 95% of the film was shot, and shooting in this incredible old house that my producers found. It's like from the 14th century or something, 15th century.
Okay.
And it's like, it's a perfect kind of house for this kind of genre of film, which is like the kind of, it's also kind of referencing B movies, like, the Southern Gothic kind of movies. It's referencing Clint Eastwood's the movie The Beguiled, directed by Don Siegel, which Sofia Coppola is now remaking, but mine is kind of a loose remake of it as well. And so it has these crazy trap doors and really creepy basements and huge attics with wind blowing through them. So it's like a really good Gothic horror setting. I mean, it's not a horror movie exactly, but it does have a horror overtones for sure. But it's just shooting in Germany in general. I've been working with my producer Jürgen Brüning here for so many years, and I have the whole team that I work with, over and again. James Carman again shot The Misandrists, who's shot almost all my films since Hustler White, and it feels like my home to make films in Berlin.
I see. Susanne Sachse, you just mentioned her, is one of the actors in both of the films. She's a kind of muse for you, definitely, isn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. I first worked with her in The Raspberry Reich, and I was 3 weeks away from shooting, and I still didn't have the female lead of the movie. So I called my friend Vaginal Davis in a panic, and I said, "Oh my God, I need this she has to be this crazy revolutionary, this terrorist, this really force of nature or whatever." And he just said, "Oh, you have to have Susanne Sachse." So it was so low budget that I actually met her for the first time on set, on the second day of shooting.
You didn't met her before?
No. And she just so thoroughly understood the role and everything about the politics of the film. So she just nailed it, absolutely. So so I've worked with her 4 or 5 times, and I've worked since then, both in film and theater. And it's like
I've seen some productions.
Oh, good.
Theater,
The Bad Breast and Jeep
The
Blackie.
one in Herbel am Ufer.
Oh, Pierre Colonel,
Yeah.
which I also made into a film, which actually won a special Teddy jury prize. But she when you get the opportunity to find an actor like that really just gets you, you don't squander it. It's like someone who just embodies your whole kind of philosophy of cinema. The way she approaches her roles, and as someone who was with the Berliner Theater Ensemble for years, and I mean she's just a consummate professional.
That's interesting that she doesn't like improvisation. I mean, this is I can't.
Well, the way she approaches things is really also she really hates this idea of method acting and this kind of emotional kind of acting. She really works from the hair and the clothing is where she starts, So
this is why she always wears wigs in your films. That's fun.
She wears quite a spectacular one in The Misandrists.
She does, definitely. A white one, right?
It's white with gray
Gray.
streaks in it. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought the character of Isolde is very interesting to me, because she's I mean, in the end, it's as a smaller society within the convent. So I mean, people get excluded, for example, refugees or get excluded in society.
Yeah,
or
marginalized.
Yeah, marginalized.
minorities,
Queer people, for example.
Yeah.
So, and she's to me, a perfect example of this kind of power relation, that she's I mean, every character in this movie is quite isolated, I think, but she's in specials. Can you explain why she's so isolated?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I want to give it away.
Ah, okay.
Is this going to be aired before or after the screening?
This is like when the film has been premiered.
After it's been premiered. Well, I don't want to give too much away, but she's a trans character, so in the film and played by a trans actor, and
Who was acting amazing.
yeah, Kita Updike. I mean, it was just a miracle that I found her because she just perfectly embodies the role, and I just found her on internet, on social media. I just put out a casting call on social media, and she just immediately, and it was, you know, colorblind casting as well. I knew I wanted to have a racially diverse mix of girls, but I didn't really know which character. It didn't really matter to me which character was black, or we have a Mexican girl, we have a girl of Asian extraction, and yeah, so she really just was, you know, a gift from Goddess. And it's really her first major, you know, acting role, and she's just just a natural. Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't want to spoil because I did this in a previous interview already. So I mean, good that you just like mentioned it. You don't want to give away too much like information price. What I thought like was quite interesting as well, that like everybody has a secret in this convent. So secrets are.
It's all about secrets.
Yeah, what is it? Like, I mean, so everybody, I mean, there's a team spirit in a certain sense, but also like everybody does his own kind of business, and there's a certain kind of distrust under each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the genre, really. Like, the genre I was referencing was like the schoolgirl film, like something like, well, Bamboo, for example, the film that Ulrike Meinhof wrote, was of influence. And as I mentioned, The Beguiled is actually about a girls' school run by Geraldine Page, and they're hiding this Confederate soldier, Clint Eastwood, in the house. They're in the South. So, and that film is also all about secrets, and no one knows who's sleeping with the soldier, and everyone's trying to have sex with him, and all the women. So, but you know, it's like schoolgirls. You know, schoolgirls have secrets. They kind of like. There's a certain competitiveness between them. I mean, it's probably schoolboys too. You know.
Probably.
Yeah, and they're competitive, and there's jealousies, you know, and it's just like something that happens in a girls' school.
I have like one more question for you. So you're quite fascinated about like German past. I mean, in several films of yours, also like in the Misandrists or in Ulrike's Brain, you face like the Red Army faction or like the Nazis. So what's so fascinating about this like German past to you? I mean, you are from Canada, you were not born here. Definitely you have a different perspective on it. Give this kind of view from the outside a more easy way to deal with this like quite terrifying past.
I don't know. It's partly, yeah, as you said, as a kind of outsider with an objective eye, I feel like I can bring a different perspective to it. Canada and Germany, to me, they share a certain kind of similarity in terms of being like Canada is overshadowed by the U.S., and so they have kind of an inferiority complex, you know, and the Germans have kind of, because of history, because of, you know, the Third Reich and everything, they kind of really learned a lesson and had themselves kind of beaten down, had their egos beaten down, I think, you know, and so, and you know, now very careful about preserving this kind of this kind of strong social leftist kind of you know, politics, and not letting it happen again. What happened, you know, with fascism. So, and Canada's a very liberal, socially liberal country as well. So there's some similarities there, but you know, in everything is so stark in Germany, like the starkness of the fact that the extreme neo-Nazi leader in the 80s, Michel Kuhn, was openly gay, is just, and in fact, he thought that homosexuality was an integral part of
this ideology.
The ideology. So that's fascinating to me. And then, of course, the Baader-Meinhof were infinitely fascinating to me, especially when I was a punk in the 80s. There was a book called Hitler's Children. It was really the first book that was written about the RAF, and I was, of course, they've been made, glamorized and kind of like, Raspberry Reich is a critique of radical chic, but they still had that kind of weird, kind of glamorous image, very, very self-consciously. They understood the media and they understood how to make themselves into these kind of Bonnie and Clyde type, romantic rebels. So that always appealed to me. Just that kind of strategy. Style, I think, is always very important in any revolutionary movement, and they certainly knew how to work it.
Bruce LaBruce, thank you so much for this interview, and
pleasure.
good luck for your screenings.
Thank you. January of the Misandrists, and shot it in the spring and posted it in the fall, and now here we are at the Berlinale. So the other one, Ulrike's Brain, has sort of been on the back burner for a long time because it's based on a performance I did at Kampnagel in Hamburg about 4 or 5 years ago, and then I shot. It was like a performance installation at a exhibition called. My name is Bruce LaBruce. I'm a filmmaker from Toronto, Canada. I have 2 films in the Berlinale this year, Ulrike's Brain, which is in Forum Expanded, and The Misandrists in the Panorama section.
Frau Pfeiffer, stimmt das Gerücht, dass Sie im Besitz des Gehirns von Ulrike Meinhof sind, der berühmten RAF-Terroristin?
Wir können keinen Kommentar dazu abgeben.
Sie können sowieso keinen Kommentar.
And remember, girls, the closest way to a man's heart is through his chest.
Make love fearlessly and femininely in the name of freedom for female people. Freedom for female people!
Welcome, Bruce LaBruce. Nice to have you here
Thank you.
at this year's Berlinale International.
Kommentar abgeben. Miss Pfeiffer, what will you do with Ulrike Meinhof's brain
Come to
tonight?
the Enterprises.
Aus Asche, aus dem Feuer bist du geboren worden. Unser Volk, das Reich zu neuem Glanze zurückzuführen und zu befreien von den amerikanischen und jüdischen Schweinen.
Can you all repeat that?
Film Festival, you will show 2 films of yours. The Misandrist is one of them, and the other is Ulrike's Brain.
Yes.
It must have been a quite productive year last year for you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of films in development that have bigger budgets, but rather than wait forever to make a film, financing takes forever, I decided to make this lower budgeted film. So I wrote it last